Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a highly detailed spec page from HDTVSupply today, and our mission is to really help you understand the sheer scale, the logistics, and the tech behind massive professional projection displays.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, literally.
Right. Specifically, we're looking at the Draper 254-255 profile plus fixed frame screen.
It's a mouthful of a name, but the engineering is just fascinating.
Definitely. And to set the stage for you, just imagine trying to pivot a 14-foot wide, perfectly rigid piece of metal up a standard office stairwell. You just can't do it.
You really can't. I mean, to put a 198-inch diagonal into perspective, the viewing area alone is 168 inches wide by 105 inches tall.
Wow, that's massive.
Yeah, so you were dealing with 14 feet of horizontal real estate.
Which brings us right back to that stairwell problem, right?
Yes.
You obviously aren't shipping a 14-foot solid board.
Exactly.
So reading through the source, Draper gets around this by shipping the frame unassembled.
Right, so it can actually maneuver around stairs and elevators.
Yeah, you build the skeleton on site using these extruded aluminum baffles, and then you tension the fabric over it with this sliding hook and loop system. It is kind of like architectural origami for AV nerds.
I love that comparison. And what's really fascinating here is that the tension is critical. With projection, any warp or sag, even a tiny ripple in the fabric, completely distorts the geometry of the image.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right, so the engineering challenge here is balancing absolute structural rigidity with real-world transportability.
Because an indestructible, perfectly flat frame is completely useless if it's permanently stuck down in the building's loading dock.
Exactly. If you can't get in the room, it doesn't matter.
So let's talk about what happens once that giant architectural tent is actually built in your space. Because the optics on this specific model trick the eye in some really interesting ways.
They do. They're using a zero-edge, completely borderless design.
Yeah, and they pair it with a gray XH600V surface that has a listed 0.6 gain. Now wait, a 0.6 gain seems dangerously low, doesn't it?
It does sound low on paper, yeah.
Because gain is basically just a measure of how much light the screen reflects back at you. So if this gray surface is eating like 40% of the light, does that restrict the display? Like, wouldn't you need a ridiculously bright projector to compensate for that?
You do need a high lumen projector, absolutely, but it's a very calculated trade-off.
Okay.
See, traditional white screens with high gain numbers look incredibly bright, but they wash out the second you turn on the lights in a church or a corporate training center.
Ah, right, the ambient light.
Exactly. So the gray surface and lower gain are explicitly designed to absorb that ambient room light. It sacrifices peak brightness to ensure your black levels actually look black, rather than some washed out gray.
Got it. So it creates the contrast ratio you actually need in a fully lit room. And the source mentions the texture itself is optimized for 1080p resolution.
Right.
So the physical weave of the fabric is tight enough to render standard HD pixels sharply without any weird artifacts.
Yeah.
But going back to that zero-edge design you mentioned, that seems to be where this gets really practical for large-scale AV setups.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, because there's no thick black bezel framing the image, and the total depth is less than 2 inches, it functions as what we call a mullion-less display.
A mullion-less display, okay.
Right, meaning you can install 2 or 3 of these screens directly flush against each other.
Wait, really? Just side by side?
Just right next to each other. The viewer's brain just stitches the adjacent images into one continuous immersive environment.
Because there is literally zero physical separation breaking up the picture.
Exactly. Total immersion.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But creating an illusion that's flawless, I mean, it doesn't come cheap. Here is where it gets really interesting economically.
Oh, yeah. The sticker shock is real.
We're looking at an MSRP of $6,096, though it's currently at $4,877 on HDTVSupply. For someone outside the AV space, paying basically $5,000 for an aluminum frame and some tension gray fabric sounds completely absurd.
Right. If you view it strictly as fabric and metal, it totally is. But from an institutional perspective, you aren't just buying raw materials. You're buying an insurance policy.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, a massive weekend church service or a global shareholder meeting simply cannot go dark.
Right. There's too much on the line.
Exactly. So the purchase includes a 5-year Draper warranty, free USA shipping, and lifetime tech support from HDTVSupply.
Well, lifetime support.
Yeah, and corporate budgets approve these line items because that safety net, that dedicated support channel, is what actually keeps the show running when things inevitably go wrong.
So the reliability and the support are the actual product in a way.
They really are. It solves an incredibly niche but universal problem in professional AV design.
Well, we've seen how the Draper 254255 tackles the logistics of moving 14-foot installations, handles ambient light, and justifies its footprint in enterprise budgets. It really isn't just a piece of fabric.
Not at all. It's a highly engineered, transportable architectural installation.
Which leaves you with a really interesting technical puzzle to chew on. The source mentions these screens allow for adjacent screens to come together with zero separation. So if you can take these relatively affordable zero-edge screens and stack them flush against each other to create a massive seamless wall of video, how closely can traditional projection technology rival the completely bezel-free multi-million-dollar LED video walls being built today? Think about that.